The film starts in 1957, near Maine. A boat is caught in a storm at sea, and the captain calls for help. Suddenly, a bright flash flies across the sky and falls into the ocean. The captain sees two big lights that look like eyes. His boat flips over, and he crashes on the rocks. A little boy, Hogarth, rides his bike to his mom's work with a squirrel in a box. He asks his mom if they can keep a pet at home, and she says yes, but she's not too happy about it. Hogarth sees that the box is open and the squirrel is gone. He sees it run to a booth and tries to tell the man there. The man, Dean, wakes up suddenly, and Hogarth asks him not to make a big deal about his pet squirrel. At a table nearby, a captain named Earl suggests he might have spotted a satellite or aliens from Mars. His friends laugh at him. Dean, feeling sorry for Earl, agrees with him. Hogarth, excited, asks more about it. When Hogarth's mother asks Dean if Hogarth is troubling him, a squirrel runs up Dean's pants. Dean panics, releases the squirrel, and chaos occurs in the restaurant. Hogarth is told to go home. Later, while watching a scary film, he hears a weird noise outside. He goes to investigate, but his TV screen goes blank. He climbs a tree to fix the antenna and sees signs of possible aliens. He attaches a flashlight to his gun and runs into the forest. He discovers trees that have been pulled out of the ground and snapped branches. He follows the glimmers of light and the sound of crackling energy. He comes across a power station, but a big robot appears behind him. The robot begins to eat metal and gets electrocuted by the power lines. Hogarth turns off the power at the station, saving the robot, but the robot collapses. In the meantime, Hogarth's mother begins to search for him. Hogarth climbs on top of the robot's head and drops a stone. The robot wakes up, and Hogarth runs towards his mother's car, which is coming closer. His mother hugs him and then yells at him for leaving the house without her knowledge. He tells his mother about the giant metal robot, but she doesn't want to hear about it. The next day, students talk about Earl's boat and the meteor. Hogarth tells them about the robot, but they ignore him. "Those are pretty lovely friends you got there, Hogarth." Floyd, a farmer, sells his broken tractor because it has significant bite marks. Kent Manley from the Department of Unexplained Phenomena talks to the power plant manager, Marv Loach. Marv isn't sure what happened as the entire tower is twisted and appears to have been bitten off by a massive creature. Kent asks him about any witnesses, and Marv gives him Hogarth's broken gun. Kent returns to his car and sees that it's half-eaten. He rushes to get Marv, and the robot takes the rest of the vehicle. He talks to Marv about the damage, but they see that the car is missing. Hogarth brings a metal sheet for the robot and calls for him in the forest. He puts it against a rock and waits with a camera. He falls asleep while waiting and wakes up to find the robot behind him. He gets scared and runs away, hitting his head on a branch. The robot starts to mimic Hogarth, who realizes that the robot won't harm him and knows that Hogarth saved his life. He tries to start a conversation and asks the robot if it can speak. The robot moves its mouth, but only a crunching noise is heard. Hogarth teaches the robot about a rock and a tree. The robot repeats the words accurately, making Hogarth happy. Kent tells the mayor and other officials that something unusual is happening in the forest. Hogarth realizes he's late and warns the robot that his mom will be upset. He tells the robot to stay put and leaves, but the robot follows him to a railway track. Hogarth begs the robot to stay put, but the robot starts eating the track. Hogarth is confused and tries to tell the robot to put it back. The robot does put the track back, but it takes a while to do so. A train hits the big metal man's head, scattering his body parts. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Hogarth takes him home, with the parts following him. He observes the robot in his barn as the parts rejoin themselves to the robot's body. Hogarth says goodbye to the robot, who waves back, only to discover his hand is missing. The mayor's office receives a call about the incident, and Kent quickly leaves. The train driver tells him that he collided with a giant metal man. Kent asks for a phone, and the driver points him to Hogarth's house. Hogarth finds the missing hand in their kitchen. He cleverly distracts his mother, Grace, and tries to take her hand outside. But the doorbell rings unexpectedly. He opens the door to find Kent introducing himself. Perfect timing, one might say. He quickly closes the door but realizes the hand is no longer there. Hogarth opens the door again, and Kent asks if he can use the phone. Kent calls his boss, but his boss doesn't believe him. His boss tells him to find evidence, which frustrates Kent. Kent leaves in his car, but but then notices that the gun has Hogarth's initials. Kent quickly turns around and goes back to Hogarth's house. Meanwhile, Hogarth discovers the hand in the bathroom and tries to push it out. Hogarth's mother and Kent knock on his door, and Annie tells him about the giant robot Hogarth was talking about. Hogarth makes strange noises, making Kent think that Hogarth is sick. Hogarth manages to push the hand out, and his mother enters the bathroom. Kent becomes suspicious of Hogarth and decides to leave. The robot becomes hungry, so they go to McScoppen's scrapyard. The robot starts eating a car but accidentally sets off its horn. What else can go wrong? Dean comes outside and finds the robot. He gets scared, but Hogarth calms him down. Hogarth begs Dean to let the robot stay overnight, and Dean agrees, lying on his couch. Hogarth returns home to find out that Kent has rented the spare room. Dean calls Hogarth, but Hogarth is stuck with Kent because of his mother. Kent keeps asking Hogarth questions and expresses unease about the robot and foreign objects. He dominantly talks to Hogarth, but Hogarth secretly puts laxatives in Kent's milkshake. Kent rushes to the bathroom and Hogarth quickly runs away. He arrives at the scrapyard and finds Dean making art with the robot. Hogarth plays with cars and jumps into the lake. The robot imitates him, causing half of the lake's water to splash and drench everyone nearby. If you want to play with a big pet robot, subscribe to the channel. Meanwhile, Kent discovers Hogarth's camera in the forest. He develops the photos and comes across one that has captured the robot. The robot witnesses a deer being shot, and Hogarth explains to him about guns, causing the robot's eyes to turn red strangely. After returning to his normal state, the robot learns about death and souls from Hogarth. Hogarth explains that souls don't die and that the robot has a soul. Later, Hogarth returns home and is confronted by Kent. Kent informs him that his mother is working late and they need to talk. While Hogarth questions the giant metal man, Kent threatens to take his mother away. Frightened, Hogarth reveals the location of the scrapyard to Kent. Kent uses chloroform to make Hogarth unconscious. Hogarth wakes up and overhears Kent speaking to the army, mentioning their arrival the next day. Hogarth attempts to sneak out but accidentally encounters Kent. He pretends to go to bed, and Kent assures him that he will watch closely throughout the night. Hogarth puts on a helmet and turns away from Kent. After 3 a.m., Kent suddenly wakes up and realizes Hogarth has escaped. You snooze, you lose, Kent. The army arrives, and they all reach the scrapyard. Dean guides them to the barn, where the giant robot is hidden beneath scraps and metal to resemble a display. The general becomes furious with Kent and instructs him to return to Washington. While playing with the robot, Hogarth portrays him as a villain, which upsets the robot. In response, the robot asserts that he is Superman. Hogarth aims a toy gun at the robot and hides to fix it. The robot's eye turns red, and he shoots a laser beam that melts a car. Dean realizes that the robot is dangerous and pulls Hogarth aside. He calms the robot down, and it returns to its normal state. Confused, the robot runs away, and Hogarth chases after him. Meanwhile, Dean examines the gun and realizes that the robot acted in self-defense. Dean rides his motorcycle and picks up Hogarth. They hurry to reach the robot, which catches the attention of school children. The children slip and hang from the roof, crying out for help. The giant robot hears their cries and leaps towards them. He saves them by holding them in his hand, and the townspeople realize he is friendly. Kent spots the giant in town and summons the army. The giant picks up Hogarth but is attacked by the army. Dean informs Kent that the giant only defends himself and that Hogarth is with him. However, Kent misleads the general, who orders fighter jets to intervene. The giant stumbles while running, but his feet transform into propulsion jets, allowing him to fly. The jets fire at him, momentarily causing his eyes to turn red, but he regains control. He evades the jets, but is shot by a tank. He falls, and the army surrounds him. Hogarth loses consciousness, and the giant becomes angry. He starts attacking the tanks and jeeps, transforming into a war machine. Dean and Annie remove Hogarth, and the general orders battleships to fire. Kent suggests bombing the town. I don't see the logic in bombing the whole town with everyone there. Hogarth wakes up and rushes out of the car to assist the giant. The general prepares to launch the bomb, but Annie shouts that Hogarth is with the giant. Hogarth controls the giant and tells him they must prove to be good. Dean informs the general that the giant is only defending himself, while Kent argues for killing it. Hogarth approaches them with the giant and pleads for them not to shoot, but Kent commands the Nautilus to launch the missile. The general makes Kent realize that the missile is heading toward all of them, and the entire town will be destroyed. Kent tries to escape in a car, but the giant stops him. Confronted by the presence of all the humans, the giant understands that he must save them. He declares that he will fix the situation and asks Hogarth to stay back. The giant propels himself and collides with the missile, feeling like Superman. The town celebrates, but Hogarth feels upset. Later, Dean and Annie become a couple and admire the statue of the Iron Giant created by Dean. Dean gives Hogarth a package from the general, which contains a small screw recovered from the giant. During the night, the screw begins to glow and starts moving. Hogarth, delighted, opens the window in his room and allows it to come out. The camera then moves forward, showing robotic parts from all over the world traveling toward Iceland, eventually getting closer to the giant's head, coming to life in Iceland. Here, we can see that the robot is getting repaired again, and he smiles at the audience, showing a beautiful turn of events. He will be okay. This is what I call one hell of a happy plot twist. This marks the end of the movie. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.